How much of the narrative that is in our news today has been spoon-fed to me by people who are super pro-Israel at all costs? The Fox News of yesteryear, which just has a knee-jerk response to things like Israel, to things like war, is out of touch with today's young Republicans.
Yes.
Today's under 50-year-old conservative men and women are over that bullshit.
There you have a longtime conservative member of the media, Megyn Kelly, questioning whether she was propagandized to support Israel during her time as an anchor on Fox News. And she also took some jabs at Ben Shapiro during this interview on Tucker Carlson's show. But before we get to any of that, Cenk, dying to know your 2 cents.
No, I'm dying for the audience to see the clips, because what she says about Fox News, Israel, and Muslims is stunning. It's an amazing development. Let's watch them.
I want to begin with her, essentially kind of looking back and questioning, wait, why did I have like this unwavering support for Israel? Like, why do I call myself a Zionist, right? And she does, even in the context of this interview, she calls herself a Zionist. Well, she gets into that, but also questions why she's been convinced that Muslims are so evil. So let's take a look at that.
How much of the narrative that is in our news today has been spoon-fed to me by people who are super pro-Israel at all costs, who won't tell the truth about Israel, no matter what it is, and will cancel you if you don't befriend or defriend people who do. And so this whole thing has made me reevaluate. Like, I'm just starting from square one, basically, on Israel right now. And I'm actually day by day taking a much harder look at who are they? What do they do? How do I find real information on what happened in this war in Gaza that I will trust? Because I do know I'm being propagandized by both sides. And how will I make up my own mind? I do start to wonder, like, how much of the very negative messaging about all Muslims, and I've been a part of some of that negative messaging. Don't get me wrong, I'm not wavering from my position that, like, it's not great to have an Islamist running New York City. But how much of the narrative has come from people who are just ardently pro-Israel and need me to hate them?
So that jab at Zoran Mamdani aside, I think that the fact that she's starting to ask these questions is a really good sign. And in fact, what she's going through right now resonates with me, because I feel like I kind of started questioning my own views on certain things a few years ago. And that level of self-questioning, that journey is a very difficult, awkward, uncomfortable journey to undergo. But I think once you make it out the other side, you have a far better perception of what's happening in the country. You have a better grasp of the actual views that your political opponents have. And it actually has a positive impact on your level of optimism, because you realize that some of the propaganda that you've been willing to believe, maybe unwittingly, had a much darker view of people in this country than you would have otherwise believed. So anyway, I'm really curious to see how this personal growth develops when it comes to Megyn Kelly, but I'm really happy that she's asking herself these questions right now.
So amazing development. So look, we talk about the Great Awakening, and now I'm seeing others do it on both sides. I've had a podcast earlier this week, and they're talking about the Great Awakening. And people on the right are talking about the Great Awakening. And the Great Awakening isn't just about Israel, guys. So yes, Israel has done overwhelming propaganda in this country. And once people see it, it's just like the Wizard of Oz. Once you show them the man behind the curtain, not only do they go, oh, that's where it got into my head. These guys have been pumping this into corporate media my whole lifetime, and now I see why they're doing it, etc. You begin to realize that almost all of the traditional media that we watched our whole lives and read our whole lives, and that this applies to me as well as everyone, It's almost all propaganda. So the awakening starts with Israel, but it isn't about Israel. Then you realize, oh wait, why do we all hate Muslims? And I'm not saying the whole country does, but a lot of folks do, and etc. And you see them struggling with it on air in the right. It's amazing. Candace Owens did it, then Tucker Carlson, now Megyn Kelly. And these are the biggest figures on the right in media going, I think we might have been taught to hate Muslims because Israel wanted us to attack them for their benefit. Exactly. I can't believe they figured it out. That's amazing. That is as good a development as I've ever seen. But still, it's the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is when you realize, oh, wait a minute, Fox News and MSNBC and CNN are all corporate media. And as we've been telling you guys here for so long, they don't actually disagree. The only things they disagree over are culture wars and identity politics, the things that drive us apart, get us to fight one another, distract us. So when it gets to, wait, you see her grappling with it right there in the clips, and there's more, where she's like, wait, who's on the board of Fox News? Who are the owners of these corporate media, and what do they want? Do they want us to support Israel? Overwhelmingly, yes. But get beyond that. Oh, they want us to go into more and more wars. Wait, do they also have stock in defense contractors and oil companies, etc.? Who are these forces that are getting us to divide based on ethnicities and race and gender, and who are not serving the American people at all, but doing those news stations as propaganda completely? It's not news at all. It's theater. They're pretending the politicians are honest, and that the billions of dollars that they've gotten from donors don't affect them at all. And that also applies to New York Times, Washington Post, and all the other people pretending to be doing objective news. No, now that we've got independent shows online, Young Turks on the left, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson on the right, etc. By the way, also Rogan and Tim Dillon and Theo Vaughn and Andrew Schultz, Charlemagne, everyone is waking up at the same time and going, oh, the news hasn't been the news. It's just been marketing for the rich and powerful and for corporations and foreign governments. We've all been lied to. That's the Great Awakening.
Well, I would exclude Rogan from that. Rogan is making a concerted effort to avoid any type of controversial political issue, and he made that very clear during a recent episode where he was hosting Kurt Metzger, and that was really sad to see. But anyway, that's beside the point. I want to move on to the next clip. In this part of the discussion, Megyn Kelly thinks that, the fact that Fox is constantly beating the war drums will ultimately lead to the downfall of Fox News Channel. Take a look.
The Fox News of yesteryear, which just has a knee-jerk response to things like Israel, to things like war, is out of touch with today's young Republicans.
Yes.
Today's under 50-year-old conservative men and women are over that bullshit. They are. They do not want war cheerleaders or Israel cheerleaders. They have healthy skepticism of both. And if Fox doesn't start understanding that and making room with its elbow for that kind of coverage to start not just occasionally being spouted on their network, but become a serious part of the network, the way Roger did after Trump took over the Republican Party and started to sort of shove out the more establishment types, or at least make room for the new MAGA types, they will fail. So they will continue with the Murdoch's mission, or even with the old Roger Ailes mission, which was very, very neocon-y, at their own peril.
In this case, I don't think that Fox News is going to be able to include, anti-war perspectives, anti-interventionist talent, for lack of a better word, because that threatens their profit model, right? So incorporating so-called MAGA people into their programming, I think, is a lot easier. And you can do it in a way that doesn't threaten your revenue the way that essentially inviting anti-war voices would. So ultimately, I don't think that Fox is going to change course when it comes to beating the war drums.
There's no chance Fox News changes course. I mean, look, MSNBC and CNN didn't change course until their parent companies, not until, they didn't change course despite the fact that their parent companies spun them off, meaning that they're dead in the water and have no chance of recovery. And they're just gonna get sold for parts eventually, and they still won't change. And look, the donors have so much power, and these giant corporations have so much power. Kamala Harris, 92% of our own voters wanted her to get out of Israel or to criticize Israel and all these things, and she wouldn't do it. The independents wanted her to do it. She could have picked up a couple of points. She could have won Michigan, etc. And she would rather have lost than change course on Israel or any of the donors. And so that's true also of Fox News and MSNBC and CNN. They're never going to change course. They're just going to drive right over that cliff. And so in the old days, though, I had no hope that they were going to drive over the cliff, because since they were the only game in town, and we're here at the Young Turks for 20 years screaming into the abyss, they're lying. It's the donors. It's all about the money, Lebowski. It's so obvious it's about the money. The number one rule of journalism was supposed to be follow the money. And the New York Times and CNN, et cetera, like, we will never follow the money. If you talk about donors, that's conspiratorial. How dare you? They would literally attack the people giving you the actual facts and the actual news. They still do it today. Like, for example, if you talk about how much money AIPAC gives to our politicians, they'll call you an anti-Semite. They won't say, oh, you're right, 94% of Congress has gotten money from the Israeli lobby. They'll say, shut up, never report that fact, and if you do, we'll ruin your life. That's not news, that's propaganda. So, Anna, I'm over the moon about this. I mean, look, we said that we saw something coming a year, 2 years ago, that this type of thing would happen, where the right wing would begin to move. And I wouldn't have predicted that the move would be this large and this significant and this quick. And it's not about moving to the left, guys. It's about moving to a populist position where you realize that the average American is getting screwed. They've been lied to their whole lives, and it's time to get up and fight back and stop having partisan brain and unite enough to actually fight the guys who have rigged the rules your whole life. And those are the people up top. They're not being under you, they're not to your left, they're not to your right, they're up top, the donor class.
You're right about that. Now, I want to go to one more video. This one I particularly enjoyed because, and it's a little lengthy, but it's worth a listen. This whole notion that you shouldn't just be held responsible for your own statements, but that you should be held responsible for the statements of your friends or your associates or your colleagues. It's the type of culture that I despise, and I've seen plenty of it on the left. I mean, I know that there have been hosts at TYT who have been pressured to condemn and denounce me because some people didn't like my opinion on one thing or the other. How about you leave the other hosts alone? And you got an issue with me, deal with me. But people should be held responsible for what they themselves say. Okay, guilt by association is so utterly lame and middle school. So she talks about the attacks that she's been getting because she refused to denounce Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. And so she takes a jab at Ben Shapiro as well. Let's take a quick look.
And some are calling me an anti-Semite. Why? What did I say? What did I do? Did I step on a rake and say something super anti-Semitic without realizing it? No, it's because I won't defriend you, and I won't condemn and say that Candace Owens is hateful. They want me really, really badly to condemn Candace Owens. And I'm sorry to break it to them, but I am responsible for what I say, not for what anybody else says. I am not Candace Owens's policeman. And by the way, they're kidding themselves that if just one more voice will say something nasty about Candace, she could finally be controlled. Like, how well has that worked so far? But again, the instinct is to stop her speech, stop it, make her stop it, make Tucker stop saying the things. Well, I have no desire to, and I have no power to. And for that, I was called a coward by Ben Shapiro at the Turning Point event, AmFest in December. Who, by the way, in my last exchange with him, literally said, our friendship, his and mine, is too important to both of us to make it depend on whom else we are friends with and aren't friends with. That is literally the last text I have from Ben Shapiro. The next thing I knew, he was standing on the stage at Turning Point calling me a coward for this very thing.
That is so shady. That is so shady that was his last text to her right before he said what he said on the stage at AmFest, calling her a coward because she refused to denounce and defriend certain people that Shapiro doesn't like.
Yeah.
Cenk, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so among these different donors, the one that does the most cancel culture, honestly, is Israel First, right? And so for guys like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, and that doesn't mean everyone who likes Israel or supports Israel or has some sort of connection to Israel, but guys who are Israel-brained, right? They have no friends. They have no allies. They have no allegiance to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, to Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, none of that. Their only allegiance is Israel. And so if you're pro-Israel, then they love you. You criticize Israel 1%, they despise you, want you to shut up, and they would ruin your career in a second. So they're absolutely obsessed to the point of nearly being deranged. And unfortunately, there's a lot of those folks. They think Israel is the most important thing by a factor of 1 billion. And partly because they have been brainwashed their whole lives into thinking, if you don't support Israel, all Jews are gonna die. So in their mind, by any means necessary, we protect Israel. And it leads to a very radical position. But now, again, tip of the iceberg, more important part is the guilt by association and cancel culture is about making sure that you shut up any dissenters on any issue. So if the powerful want you to shut up, they'll find a way to shut you up. They'll do character assassination first, and both left and right. Elliot Spitzer, sheriff of Wall Street, holding the bankers accountable. All of a sudden, they hire a private detective, track him down, find him with a prostitute, and end his career, right? And then on the right, all of a sudden, Madison Cawthorn or anyone that raises their head and says, well, you know what? Some of the guys on our side are wrong too. Oh, look at this. We've had these pictures of him dressed like this and that the entire time, but never released it. But the minute he criticizes someone we don't want, someone who's powerful, then we're gonna ruin him. Character assassination. And then if you say anything where you platform them, talk to them, say anything positive, guilt by association. The whole point of this giant cancel culture machine is to shut Americans up and make sure they bow their heads and follow the rules and the propaganda of the powerful. So don't let them do that to you, whether you're on the right or the left. The First Amendment is freedom of speech, freedom of press, and yes, the freedom to criticize and protest your government. Do not let them take the most American freedom and rights and core issues away from us. We have to keep America as it is, as actually these wonderful things enshrined in our Constitution, and not the propaganda that is given to you by traditional media, the politicians, and all the corrupt who have been trying to brainwash us our whole lives into compliance and obedience with them. Do not be obedient, be an American. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.